Let's bring in our Europe editor, Armen Georgian. He is in Brussels. Hello there, Armen. We saw Macron condemn the violence that we've seen during the protests here in France. What else did he say about the fight over pension reform?
Well, he said he was ready for dialogue, essentially, which is obviously what he said the last few days and weeks, but there was obviously some emphasis on the most recent tensions, and perhaps what stuck out for me was Macron saying that it was impossible or unacceptable that people armed should be taking on the police. But in any case, this was obviously a topic that was going to overshadow this press conference. Although I have to say there's a lot of other things that have been happening in this EU summit that were addressed as well.
And we also heard him discuss that Britain's King Charles, not coming and why that's happening, and that there is going to be a new date.
Yeah, that's right. We haven't been told exactly when that's going to happen. He simply said that it's very unfortunate that trip was postponed, but unfortunate for the British and for the French, but that it would have been even worse to continue with the plans in the current circumstances, and no date was given indeed for any new state visit.
And of course, Armen, he is speaking from Brussels, where there is this EU summit, leaders from all across Europe. What kind of update did he give about the summit and what they've accomplished?
Well, a lot of people wanted to know how his meeting had gone with the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, because very unusually after that bilateral this morning, there was no readout from Macron's entourage, which there normally is, especially for someone that is such an important partner for France, that's to say Germany. Going into this summit, the two countries were very much at odds on two issues. One was nuclear energy, which the French are pushing to be included as a key green technology of the future, and something that they want to be very much at the center of Europe's energy transition. There are certainly members of the German governing coalition that do not want to go in that direction. And the other issue really was this question of the combustion engine, which the EU has agreed to phase out by 2035. The Germans have been trying to get a sort of slight tweak on the deal that's already been agreed to make sure that those engines can keep running on e-fuels, and those differences seem to have slightly narrowed. That was at least my read. Based on Macron's press conference, he said that actually the Germans, according to him, were not challenging that agreement that I mentioned before, but they were simply trying to fine-tune things so that e-fuels would not be excluded after 2035. That does seem to be a slight change of tone from the French, because the briefing we had earlier in the week was that the French would be very vigilant, that was the word used, if any attempts were made implicitly by the Germans to reopen or to revisit that deal on phasing out the combustion engine by 2035. So a slight narrowing of differences, you might say, but you've got to also look at the broader summit, and there are other leaders that are skeptical about this German initiative. So this is still something that is going to have to be agreed in a wider format ultimately.
EU editor Armen Georgian in Brussels, thank you so much for your reporting.